welcome into Texans Today, everybody. I'm your host, Jeremy Chuggs, and coming up on today's show, who is the Texans' most underrated player on the roster? I'll tell you what PFF has to say about that. Also, two surprising Texans starters based on a article released by Bleacher Report where they're projecting each team's starting defensive and offensive units. I'll let you know who those two players are and the latest AFC South odds, as later on today, I'll be bringing you another video with the Texans' official schedule, breaking down every single game, game by game. But what are the odds for the Texans to actually win the division? I'll let you know that at the end of today's program. But before I break down what PFF has to say, because I could give two shits about what PFF has to say about the most underrated player, I care more about what you have to say about who the most underrated player is on the Houston Texans. So go down there in the comment section and let me know, who's the most underrated player on the Texans right now? You know what? Their name, Foley Fatukasi, but if full transparency, if I'm answering this question, if I'm giving my X factor, my most underrated player for the Texans, I think I'm going Christian Harris at linebacker. But PFF, they put Foley Fatukasi, the defensive tackle, signed in free agency this past offseason. Like I said, PFF named an underrated player on every single team. Fatukasi was the name for the Texans, and looks like he's going to probably start at nose tackle after signing that 1-year contract this past offseason. Big dude up the middle. They signed him and Danico Autry, the two, big additions to the interior of the defensive line. But let's hear what PFF had to say on why he's the most underrated player. It is not easy to find an underrated player on a team that is getting as much hype as the Texans. However, Fatukasi's signing is flying under the radar. If he can get back to his old form that he showed with the Jets, he can be a valuable piece to this defense. While he did not live up to expectations in Jacksonville during the 2019 and 2020 seasons, Fatukasi earned a 90.4 run defense grade, which ranked third among interior defenders behind only Aaron Donald and Cameron Heyward. And I do have to say for that, I can see why PFF thinks Foley Fatukasi is going to be the most underrated player for the Houston Texans this next season, because he's going to be doing a lot of the dirty work. A lot of people are going to be focusing on Will Anderson, Danielle Hunter, even Danico Autry, because those are going to be the guys that get the sacks. Foley Fatukasi is not going to get you sacks. I hate to break that to you. If you really only rate defensive linemen based off sacks, you're not going to think Foley is that good. But what he is going to be good at is eating up blocks in the middle. This is a big dude. 6'4", almost 320 pounds. He is going to be that interior guy to really help in the run defense game, kind of like PFF mentioned in that article, and kind of help that interior defensive line to where they can't just, double team Danielle Hunter, double team Will Anderson Jr. They'll have Foley Fatukasi in the middle where he's a big dude. He can still get in the backfield, disrupt the run game a little bit, give you a little bit in the pass rush, but mainly just kind of stay there in the middle of that defense and make sure the quarterback doesn't come up the middle. And full transparency, I think on pass rush downs, Fatukasi probably exits the game and they bring somebody else in for him in that instance. But in the run game, first and second down, I think he's going to be a great contributor for the Houston Texans this season. Coming up in just a moment, Bleacher Report, they predicted the Texans starters on offense and defense, and two of the names might surprise you. One of them shouldn't surprise you if you've been watching this program. What else shouldn't surprise you is we have the best deal on the Texans brand new jerseys here with our friends over at Fanatics. When you go to chatsports.com/Texans jerseys, they have all of the available jerseys ready for you to go and buy. They recently just dropped the Tank Dell jersey, which is now available, I believe, only in the home navies as of right now. But my favorite, and producer Tex, he always lines it up for me, he knows. My favorite jerseys, the white ones in this C.J. Stroud jersey, absolutely clean. Now, the only thing I kind of wish, maybe next year we get a white helmet. All white would be absolutely disgusting. Maybe with a blue and red horn, kind of like matching that. Just saying, Texans, if you're watching, maybe take some notes. But for right now, if you want to get any of these jerseys, go down in the comments and description of today's video and check out the link. It's chatsports.com/Texans jerseys. They're all available for you right now with our friends over at Fanatics. Get them while supplies last. Now, Bleacher Report, they listed their projected starters for the Houston Texans. And like I said, two of these names might surprise you if this is your first time watching this program. But I've been preaching that I think the Texans are going to go with Jeff Okudah as the starting outside cornerback. And Bleacher Report, they agreed with me. for the start of the season at least. And the other surprising name was Kenyon Green starting at guard. I know we've had a lot of different, formations that the Texans can go with on the offensive line, but this one, they're saying Kenyon Green is going to be the starter. Let's talk about Okudah first, though. Okudah signed in free agency this offseason, last played with the Atlanta Falcons in a up and down roller coaster. He at one point was benched, at other points looked like a really good second cornerback option. But with the Houston Texans drafting Kamari Lassiter, a guy who really, I think, his traits show that he can play really well in the nickel. I think that might be where they put him. And Bleacher Report, they said the exact same thing. This is what Bleacher Report and I think the Texans cornerback depth chart is going to look like. Jeff Okudah being that CB2, Derek Stingley Jr. being the CB1, and Kamari Lassiter playing the slot. And it very well might be after OTA's preseason, Kamari Lassiter shows that he is good enough to play on the outside, and then Desmond King kind of slots in there as your nickel cornerback. But I think for right now, this is where I'm kind of leaning, not heavily, but for right now, a little bit more on the Jeff Okudah and Kamari Lassiter. But a lot of this also, goes on if Jeff Okudah can really revive his career in Houston. They signed Okudah. They also signed C.J. Henderson, 2 former top 10 picks in the NFL draft. And D'Amico said, hey, there's a lot of untapped potential with these guys. So maybe he sees something that the rest of the league doesn't with these guys. Maybe he can untap their potential and help them play to that level of a top 10 pick and possibly be a shutdown corner for the Texans. I don't know. That's a very heavy ask for Jeff Okudah, who's had a low career. But what say you? Do you think Okudah's going to have a bounce-back year this season with the Houston Texans? Give me a yes, give me a no down in the comments section. And the other name, which this one might have been a little bit of a more surprise to me, at least, they had Kenyon Green slated in as the starting left guard for the Texans going into this season. Now, last year, Green didn't play any regular season snaps. He was put on IR before the season what was played. He got hurt in that preseason game against the Saints with his shoulder. But this is the offensive line that they put out there. And it's one of the 3 that I've been floating around as well, where it's Laramie Tunsil, Kenyon Green, Juice Scruggs, Shaq Mason, and Titus Heyward, which I wouldn't hate at all, especially if Kenyon Green can come back to form and prove why he was a first-round pick out of Texas A&M. But this just shows the center and left guard battles in camp and preseason. It's going to be the biggest offensive battles on the Houston Texans roster this offseason. If you're looking for, what positions can I look at that might change in the offseason, it's going to be center and left guard on this Texans offense. I think all the other positions are pretty much solidified. You have Dalton Schultz, you have your 3 receivers, you have C.J. Stroud, you have Joe Mixon. Now, left tackle, right tackle, maybe is all set. I think Shaq Mason is in there at right guard. But the battle on the inside, I'm going to be looking at 4 guys in particular. Kenyon Green, Juice Scruggs, Jarrett Patterson, and yes, I'm going to put Titus Heyward there. I know he hasn't played well at guard, but this is more about Blake Fisher. If Blake Fisher shows that he's ready and he's one of the 5 best offensive linemen on your team, I believe the Texans are going to find a way to put him on the squad. Now, that means he might have to beat out Titus Heyward for right tackle and then forcing Heyward to move into left guard, which a lot of Texans fans are against, and deservedly so. Howard's been very shaky when moved to the guard spot. But if you drafted Blake Fisher in the 2nd round, if he's one of your best offensive linemen, I think they're going to find a way to get him on the field. Now, before I let you folks go, one last thing to talk about, the latest AFC South title odds, as we're going to be breaking down the Texans' full schedule release later on today. Another reason why you got to hit that sub button. Make sure you have your notifications turned on so whenever we do get the Texans' schedule, you'll be notified. And we have about half the schedule already, so we're probably going to get it before they officially release it on ESPN, so stay tuned for that later on today. But this was pretty interesting to me. The strength of schedule for all the NFL teams going into next year. I know it's a little bit small on your screen, but the Texans have the 4th hardest schedule according to the NFL, based it on opponent win percentage. They're at .526, I believe. But 4th hardest in the National Football League. But still, Vegas thinks Houston is going to come out with the division title. Currently at +110 for the Houston Texans, followed by the Jags at +260, which is interesting because I've been saying this offseason, I think the Colts are a bigger threat to the Houston Texans than the Jacksonville Jaguars. But the Jaguars right now ahead a little bit in Vegas at plus 260, Colts at plus 320, and the dark horse are the Tennessee Titans at plus 800. And I just got to ask you, say it with your chest. Put your money where your mouth is. If you are talking the talk, then go ahead and walk the walk. Let me know down in the comment section, how much money would you wager on the Texans winning the division right now? I mean, if I had to put some money on it, if I was in a state where I could bet on the Houston Texans, I'd probably throw $300-400 on the Texans winning the division this year. I'm very confident that the Texans at least are going to win the division, possibly make the playoffs as that division winner for the AFC South. I feel pretty confident that, barring injuries this season for the Houston Texans. But what say you? Would you bet any money on the Texans winning the division this year? I want to know down in the comment section. That's all I have for you on today's video. As always, if you want more Texans updates, NFL news and rumors, the latest around pop culture, the dankest memes on the internet, you can follow me right now at Jeremy Chugs on Twitter, or as some people call it, X, I guess. Or, you could always follow up with me here on the channel. Make sure you are subscribed and you never miss a video here on Texans Today. We are the fastest growing Texans channel on YouTube for good reason, because we bring you daily Texans videos for free all year long. The most interactive, most informative channel on YouTube is right here at Texans Today. So go down and hit that sub button right now.